Welcome to The Founder's Mind. This is your host, Adam Muchler. On today's episode, I have Cullen Gilchrist, founder and CEO of Union Kitchen. Cullen has made it his mission through Union Kitchen to cultivate a thriving food scene in DC. Cullen has created what feels like the Willy Wonka shop of food product development, production, marketing, and distribution. Listen in and learn all about how he wants to put DC food businesses on the national map. With you, Cullen, thanks for being on The Founder's Mind. Mm-hmm. And we're here at Union Kitchen, and I'd love to hear a little bit from you. Where am I? What are you doing? What's going on here?
You're deep inside the cave of Union Kitchen.
It's a well-lit cave over here.
It's
nice.
Next to a wall. We have lots of food in our cave, so it's safe. So we're at Union Kitchen. We're at our main kitchen up in Ivy City in DC. And this is where it all starts. So, we're here to build successful food businesses. And we're doing that through a variety of ways, but really it's about us partnering with people with ideas, concepts, products, whatever it may be. And we're going to leverage everything that we're trying to build here, as well as just like drive them along this growth path so that they can become successful. And so that includes this kitchen. So this is where people are going to not only make their food, but learn how to manufacture food. Because if you're not making food on scale, you're going to have a hard time getting to success, right? Mm-hmm. If you're making like 20 pizzas, well, not enough to feed a family, not enough to put a kid through school, right? You got to do like 20 pizzas a minute, something like that. So we use the kitchen kind of for that. And then we're running a distribution company as well. So we got trucks driving food around. We sell to Whole Foods and Moms and Yes and about 100 stores here in the DC area. In particular, we're selling to Compass Coffee, and they're a really fantastic partner. Yeah. And then we're selling to our own stores, and we've got 2 stores right now that we have open, and we're opening a lot more with the goal of just like let's create this ecosystem that involves the things that like we're building, but also all these other people in the DC area that are building things, that are selling food, that are passionate about food, that are telling stories about food businesses. So that's our whole thing, and we are in the center of that.
No, I love it. And I was when I came in, Emily gave me a little tour of the space. And before I got here, I had this, for some reason, Willy Wonka came to mind. Yeah. Where I was like, there are all these different businesses that are creating these new food products. And then when I got here, there's this hot room for producing hot foods and this cold room for producing cold foods. And there's just this like crazy like vat looking thing in the hot room. I was like, what is that? Yeah. And it's like, I guess a double, like, I'm familiar with like Williams Sonoma double boiler, like little pot. And this is like, 10 humans like size double boiler. Anyways, this seems like a culinary playground.
Yeah. We like the Willy Wonka factory idea. That's what we're trying to go for. Okay. Cool. We used to have the chocolate lava flow, but we got to get rid of it. Too many people falling in. When
did Union Kitchen start? And what was how did you get into this? I mean, how did you think that this was a thing that could happen?
Well, we started in 2012.
Okay.
And it started certainly in a very different mindset than where we are now. And what it is today is not what I ever thought we'd do. Mm-hmm. Love what we're doing now, but I think with anything, it's iterative. And you go from one place to another by learning from mistakes, by learning from not mistakes. Sometimes you do things right, and you try to keep doing that. But we started in 2012 largely because we were running this pop-up cafe called the Blind Dog Cafe.
Blind Dog Cafe.
We were in a bar called Darnell's, and he was there at night. And we'd come in the morning, we'd make coffee, and we'd make sandwiches. And my sister was making these awesome cookies and baked goods. Yeah. And people loved it, and people were coming. And we're like, wow, we have to make more cookies. Yeah. And we're gonna need a kitchen to do that. Mm-hmm. We're gonna need big mixers and ovens and stuff. So we started looking around to solve this problem. The problem was we needed a kitchen, right? But in doing that, we did find a kitchen, but we realized it was really hard, and that we weren't the only ones looking. So first stab at this was, let's solve the problem of people not having kitchen space. Yeah. And let's share it with those people so they don't have to do all this crazy stuff that we just did. Because, we got this kitchen, it's really big. And we like hanging out with other people that make food. And that's how we started. That was kind of our ambition at the time. But in doing that, we started seeing that all of these people that were doing awesome things that we had a tremendous kind of like respect for, and they were passionate, and we were passionate about them. But they didn't really know what they were doing, and they weren't getting licensed, or they weren't driving enough revenue, and they were closing up shop sooner or later. And that was always the story you heard about food businesses. They close quickly, but that sucks, right? I don't like that. I mean, I'm living in DC. I want to be in a place that's vibrant and interesting and full of good food. And I didn't see how that would happen if all the people that were fun and interesting and vibrant and were trying to make good food were quitting and, going back to being a consultant, or they were moving to other cities. So I was like, cool, what do we do? If only so I can eat this food more often.
Yeah.
So we started just working. Yeah, 100%. I want to live in a city that's cool, right? And how do cities get cool? Well, people do things.
Yeah.
And so we thought, like, well, we can do some things. And we can help people with lessons we've learned, not only sharing the space, but hey, like let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about getting licensed. Let's talk about how do you price your stuff. And so we started doing that. Doing that, we learned there's other problems people are facing, like how do you get your food to the places it's got to go.
Yeah.
So we started a food distribution company. So we got trucks, we got a warehouse, and we started taking the food and bringing it to these places. And those places turned out to be Whole Foods and about 100 other stores in the area. And we're like, great, this is awesome. Let's start building this. And then, progression, that's working well, it's going. But we run into this kind of next problem. Like, hey, it's kind of hard to get started selling in a grocery store.
Sure.
How can we make that easier? Well, we could open our own stores and we could like streamline that process. Like, you're ready to go, great. You're on shelves.
Yeah.
Because if you want to get into like a bigger store, it might take 6 months.
Yeah.
And you might run out of money in 6 months, or maybe passion.
Yeah, no, totally. And even being able to see how people react when it is on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
You can do as many pop-ups and as many little things as you want, but having it sit there sort of day after day and get that feedback. Is it moving? Is it not moving?
Yeah. Well, that's the real feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, like someone at a pop-up, it's always great.
Yeah.
I mean, who's gone to a pop-up and complained?
Yeah.
I mean, there are people.
For sure.
Not many. And I wouldn't do that. But if it's on the shelf, I mean, it's a real simple thing. Did someone buy it?
Yeah.
Did they buy it next week?
Mm-hmm.
Did they buy it the week after that?
Mm-hmm.
And did someone new come and buy it?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's happening, it's good. If that's not happening, it's bad. Mm-hmm. It's like pretty binary, which is nice.
Totally. No, I think that's a pretty interesting element of retail, right? It's the market speaks.
Yeah. And it's really got to speak. I mean, you got to sell a lot of pizza or a lot of coffee to make it work, right? I mean, it's not like, hey, dude, 10 people bought this today, which is really cool at a certain point in your growth. But, to sell $5 million of coffee, that's like 2 million people that have to buy your coffee now.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
What's a challenge that comes to mind that you had to navigate? I know there's more than one, but one that sort of pops up.
Challenge. Yeah. I mean, lots of challenges. I mean, we're really interesting in that we have our own team, right? We've got 50, 60 people on our team. Mm-hmm. We're running grocery stores, which is retail. We're running trucks, which is distribution. We're managing a kitchen, like really diverse teams. And teams are hard to run, mm-hmm. Especially as you get bigger. But then we've got this dynamic of we're going to work with all these other businesses here.
Yeah. And
we have to get everyone on the same page. One of the cool things for me is that like if you build a process that really integrates everything along a single value stream, things work really well. I mean, you've seen that like some of these great tech companies have done that. Google, Apple, they pulled that off. That's why they have such great companies, many, many, many years later. That's what Toyota did. They really rethought how do you do auto manufacturing. And so what we're trying to do, and it's a real challenge, is to build those sets of teams, those levels of communication of all wanting the same thing. And that's why our mission is like so straightforward. It's like, we want successful food businesses. Mm-hmm. That's it. Because you know what? That guy out there who's making bagels, he wants that same thing. And he knows that if we're successful, he's got a better chance. Yeah. And we know if he's successful, we've got a better chance.
I mean, if you've got several locations in the DC area with good foot traffic, that's already a sign of success for you, but also puts more eyes on products.
Oh yeah, big time.
I mean, that's just one example.
Yeah.
Do you focus on, now I'm just kind of looping in my leadership development brain here, do you focus on some of that leadership element, building a team, growing a team, or is it mostly like the sort of the nitty gritty parts of growing a food business?
Yeah, I think one of the major lessons that I've learned in the last 6 years was I was a nitty gritty guy, I still am, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? What's the fastest way? Can I do it better? But I realized that, man, if you're building teams, that means you need to build leaders. And building leaders takes a lot of work. It doesn't happen, right? Like, we've got a whole education system and a sports culture that's kind of focused on trying to build leadership. But so a lot of my focus now is thinking about how do we build leaders on our team, and how do we build CEOs of these companies that we're working with. And they need those leadership skills. They need to understand how to relate to others, how to inspire them, how to build structures that other people can be successful in, but how to continue to challenge and develop your teammates.
I think you're kind of tapping into something that I've been thinking a lot about, which is this idea of scaling yourself from founder to CEO.
Oh yeah.
And there's a big difference.
Big difference.
And there are competencies with both that complement each other and sometimes overlap, but there are competencies that are very much in the executive field and in the entrepreneurial space. And to your point, and it's eat pizza up over my shoulder here. The conversations evolve when you go from, getting in Union Kitchen Grocer and Mom's to Whole Foods, and then getting into Whole Foods to, Kroger's. Being able to manage those conversations and manage the company that has to respond to the commitments is very different.
Oh, it's so incredibly different. And that man, that's the biggest challenge, that I faced. And I imagine everyone does that builds a larger team. Because it's one thing to do. It's another to train a person to do something. But man, it's a whole other thing to build a team of leaders that will train others to do. I mean, that's a lot. That's a few layers removed. And that's a skill you don't learn all that easily. You kind of have to mess up and figure out better ways of doing it.
And that's actually a thing, I think, with entrepreneurs and any accelerator program. There is a little bit of this space where failing is a part of the process. And that's actually a really great skill to take into leadership, right? You're going to make mistakes. And I think Harvard Business put out a piece of research. So one of the most common traits of the most successful CEOs is that they make decisions with about 70% of the information. There's a gap. Like, I know enough to know that this is a thing we should be moving towards, but I don't have all of the information. And it's also not catastrophic if they have to make a shift. But I think kind of in this vein, right, being able to start moving in a direction, because if you wait too long, you've either overthought it, or someone else is kind of coming up behind you.
Important thing that I've learned and that we try to teach everyone that comes through here is that you're wrong. Like, you are wrong, and you might have taken 5 years to get to what you think's right, but it's wrong. And it might be only a little wrong, it might be a lot of wrong, but you got to be prepared for the change. You got to be prepared for the pivot. And if you put all of your chips on that first play, then you might as well bow out now, because it just doesn't work that way, right? You're going to have to change, and you have to have that resilience within yourself, but also your team. Because man, like, I change what we do all the time, and if my team can't handle change, then this crashes down. So I got to train resiliency. I got to hire resilient people. And same with these guys. So, the eat pizza was not what it is today. It's changed a lot, and it gets better and better each time. But if he just was running out that first thing, his sales wouldn't be that strong, and we'd be talking about shutting the business down. And we've worked with a bunch of businesses that they did their first iteration and it didn't hit. And it was like, great, all right, let's work on changing it. And they were like, oh, I can't. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what to do then.
I think there's so many examples, especially at large scale, right? Like the Zune comes to mind, Microsoft's MP3 player. Like, that was a thing. And there were conversations about, will it take down the iPod? Like, here's a major sort of attempt at challenging, that part of Apple's business, and Zune doesn't exist anymore. And that's obviously, $100 billion company, but there's this element of putting things out there, and to the sort of earlier part of the conversation, seeing what the market says. Right. And taking that and shifting it. I just listened to an episode of How I Built This. and it was the founder of Flickr and Slack, and I'm forgetting his name.
Stuart Butterfield.
Yeah,
I just listened.
Yeah. So he talks about like this gaming platform business that he was trying to start, and it wasn't successful. And then Flickr came out of it. There was a feature in the game that they're like, oh, we could do a photo sharing app. And then he went to Yahoo, and then came back and started the game thing again, and it didn't work. And they're like, oh, we have this chat function that everyone seems to like, and Slack came out of that.
Yeah.
So there's also this really interesting. It might not be that you won't succeed, but maybe it's just there's a piece in there that you should be focusing on that you haven't found yet.
Well, that's what I love about food and food businesses, because it's not like hidden deep in some code. It's like, that pizza's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So what's the change? Well, it has to be really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or like, that pizza's really good, but it's too expensive. So what's the change? You got to lower the price.
Yeah.
They're so intuitive, some of these things, but it's also really hard because we all are so passionate, which means that we then become defensive about our ideas. Mm-hmm. And so to get someone kind of in the mindset of like, change is good and that it's okay to be wrong. In fact, you are wrong. Say it out loud, and then let's work on like getting to the next level and making the first pivot and the second and the third.
Yeah, I feel like this is the beginning of a TED Talk. You come out and say, I am wrong. Everything I'm about to say is wrong. We just don't know it yet.
Make the audience say it's wrong. Yeah. I like that. I like that. That's basically what our team meetings are now.
Yeah.
Like I bring everyone in and I go like, well, here's what I messed up this week. How about you? What'd you do? Once you start owning being wrong, then you can get into a growth mindset. Yeah. Like, cool, that was wrong. And here's how I fix it.
Yeah. Or, to the community that you've created here, there are a lot of brilliant people, and there are a lot of people that are passionate about food. And if you're able to open up and say, hey, this is where I'm failing, or this is where I've had an issue, someone else might have already overcome that, or might have a completely different perspective, never having done it before, but just bringing a different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, the patterns that exist here are just amazingly consistent. And if you're going through a feeling or a phase or a question, it has happened.
Yeah.
And either someone did it wrong or they did it right, and you can choose which path to take.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I like to tell people there are very, very, very few, if not no, original ideas. It's just like, what is the perspective that you're bringing to an idea? I mean, to your point with this pizza company and even Compass Coffee, I always use these examples like this.
Yeah.
When people are like, I don't know, like someone's already done this before. I'm like, how many versions of one thing are there in the grocery store? Or how many coffee shops are there in your city?
Yeah.
There are a lot. I mean, in DC, Dolcezza, Compass, even like I'm going to Qualia after this, which is just a little, location. Lost Sock, which is, I don't know if they have a location yet. I think they're going to soon.
They got coffee though.
Yeah, but they've got coffee. Like people have these ideas, and it's, what is your perspective and what voice are you bringing to that?
Yeah, we talk about, are you better? Mm-hmm. Not are you different, are you new? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've only been around a little while. Mm-hmm. Man, I've seen a lot. Yeah. And there are very few people that come here and say something that we have been like, oh yeah, yeah, we did that. And here's what didn't work. So you should start from this step.
I mean, especially at this scale, 400 food businesses.
Yeah, it's a lot of ideas.
You're getting to a point where you've probably heard maybe not all, but a majority of things that will come up.
And we're getting a couple hundred applications.
Yeah.
A month. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of ideas. Mm-hmm. And then you put that over like 6 years. I mean, we've heard a lot of ideas. I was trying to do the math, like how many ideas exist in the world? And then how many people exist, So like can we just like mathematically prove that like you're not unique and you have no new ideas? So now let's focus on what's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then how do you do it better?
Well, I think, and this gets to a distinction that's really interesting. What's unique? How do you do it better? But also it's less about the idea and it's more about execution.
Oh yeah, totally.
Are you willing to keep pushing? Are you willing to keep going? I have a handful of friends that are artists, and they grapple all the time with, should I just get a job at an organization that'll pay me for my art, but I'm not doing like my own work, you know? And I say every year that you don't quit, thousands of people are quitting all over the world. Like every year that you don't stop pushing, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, depending on your field, are quitting, which means you're becoming part of a smaller and smaller group. And every hour that you put to your craft, whether it's food, art, tech, again, it's building that that developing expertise and that wisdom in your field?
Oh, it's everything. I mean, so like if you think about it, it's like ideas don't matter, execution matters, right? Well, how do you execute? Well, by being a great leader, right? You got to lead yourself, and you got to lead a team. So what's success? Maybe the proof here is that success is learning how to be a great leader and then applying that to good ideas.
Yeah, and putting in the work.
Put into work.
I mean, I'm not a huge sports fan, but I think about pro athletes all the time. When you read about Kobe Bryant, when you read about LeBron James, when you read about Steph Curry, when you watch them practice, it's almost intimidating how many hours they put into it.
Oh, yeah.
I think Kobe would take like 700 shots a day. That's an incredible amount of shots.
That adds up.
It adds up, it compounds.
Real quick.
There are stories of when he was on the Olympic teams where people would go to work out and he was coming back from the gym. He'd gotten up at 3:40 a.m. and had been working out for 2 hours and was going for his first break before he went back. And I mean, it does take, I think, a little, a level of insanity to maybe spend that much time. But if you want to be not just the 1%, but the 0.1%, that's what people do. They are maniacally focused.
Well, I had a friend say this to me the other day, and certainly something I've always subscribed to. But, if you want to be like everyone else, do the things that everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And if you want to, be extraordinary, do some extraordinary stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you see it. I mean, I love Kobe, and I hated him when he was on the Lakers. But the dude is doing cool stuff right now.
Yeah.
I mean, did he just win an Emmy or a Grammy or something?
He won an Emmy, I think.
Whoa.
And he made in his venture capital business, there was this juxtaposition. It took him, I think, 14 years to make $200 million as a player salary, and then it took 6 years to make $200 million in VC.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously money helps you make money, but
he's not lucky.
No,
he's earning it.
Absolutely. The timing of this conversation is really interesting, and where we are specifically in this conversation. But Nike and Colin Kaepernick are, been doing a lot of. They just announced their campaign together, and they just released this video.
I've not seen it.
Okay, it's really good. It's 2 minutes. It might make you cry, depending on who you are. I might have teared up a little bit, but the whole thesis is when people say your idea is crazy, or when people say you're doing something crazy, it's not an insult; it's a compliment. And ask yourself, is your idea crazy enough?
Yeah.
It's not too crazy. Is it crazy enough? And I think that's such a sharp distinction.
Is that what it says in there? Is it crazy enough?
Is it crazy enough?
I love that.
It's so good.
Well, doesn't it end with just do it?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, eventually it ends with just do it.
Hey, that's big, man. Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's freaking weird.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I shared this a little bit earlier, but this podcast, I mean, I think Emily asked me how I started it, and I was like, I just did. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got the name, I got the domains and stuff, and then just started figuring it out. Had to get the mic because I didn't realize I was going to get guests. Even that's part of having a show. Who's a founder that you admire and why?
Ooh, well, I obviously love listening to how I built this podcast.
Yeah.
So you get to learn a lot of these founder stories.
Totally. And
that's been really great for me too, because where else do you hear the stories?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You see that Steve Jobs built this huge thing. But then you kind of dig into it a little bit, and man, he made a ton of mistakes.
Lots.
So I don't know, who's a founder I admire? I don't know as much as I really love hearing the stories of how they did it. I love hearing these success stories, but man, I really love hearing the failures. Yeah. And How I Built This is great because they tell the failures on the way to the success. Totally. What I love about what we do here is I've gotten to watch a couple hundred failures. Sure. And, I know those stories, and that's really, really compelling for me because, I'm proud of them for trying. I'm proud of myself for trying. And I'm happy that we're learning those lessons. And I hope they try again. Yeah. But yeah, that's what's inspiring for me when I think about other people that are trying to build businesses. They just did it, right? And they took a run at it. Yeah. Which is something they should be proud of.
Yeah, and the names that tend to just be the people that didn't stop.
Yeah, the Stuart Butterfield one was really cool. I like that. I mean, man, I say this really positively. Yeah. What a nerd. Yeah, totally. And I was like, man, I need to be that nerdy because that's freaking cool. He just loves what he's doing, and he led a bunch of people that loved it just as much. Yeah. And was never afraid of messing up.
The other thing that I find fascinating about that story, and I think it's a great lesson, are the two products that are home runs, essentially, with Flickr and Slack, are significantly more simplified and clean and basic than anything he was trying to create.
Yeah.
You know, it was just very, very refined, singular function of this massive product he was trying to create.
Yeah.
And I think we overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
You know, when you get down to it, you know, are you creating the most distilled version of whatever thing, whether it's food, whether it's a piece of technology, whether it's a product that we hold. You know, like AirPods for me are almost the most distilled version of things that you can put in your ear.
Yeah.
I mean, really. They're visually and physically so basic. But you see them, at least in DC and, you know, other affluent and even non-affluent areas, you see them everywhere.
Yeah.
What's something that you've learned recently that blew your mind?
I'd say in the last year, I learned that I need to learn more.
Okay.
And during that process, I learned that to learn more, I need to read more. I need to listen more. I need to ask more questions.
Totally.
And man, has that been powerful. You know, I had my, you know, nose to the grindstone for years of just like learning from doing. And man, I'm still learning from doing. But now it's trying to learn through learning, active learning. I mean, I am really enjoying right now learning about like this idea of like lean manufacturing.
Sure.
And thinking about like really, really powerful teams based on, you know, communication, based on a shared goal and a value stream that understands each of the steps. And learning about that is just so exciting because then it's like, wow, we like put that with our team here at Union Kitchen, and we put that with our companies that we work with. But shit, that's what I think about when I'm like looking at the Celtics and like watching basketball. I'm like, oh wow, they all have this shared goal.
Yeah.
Like they all want to score more points than the other team, and they all are bought into it. And it helps me better understand sports. It helps me better understand design. You know, that's really fun.
Yeah.
So I've been reading books on that, and no good podcasts that I've found yet. But I'm sure there are. I just haven't found them.
Yeah. I went to a podcast convention because I started this podcast and I was like, to your point on learning, I was like, I don't really know that much about this. And there was a podcast conference in Philadelphia, 2,600 people. There were a lot of people there. CEO of NPR was a keynote speaker, like one of the keynotes. It was like a 4-day thing. And there are a lot of shows out there, but there's a lot, like I came out of that, I immersed myself in a learning moment, you know? And I came out of that reevaluating all these things that I had sort of developed even on this show, and lessons that I felt like I had learned already was relearning or learning better things.
Yeah.
You know, to your point of you're wrong.
Yeah, the first lesson I think that you have to learn and that I've learned is, or I'm still learning, is just the humility, man.
Yeah.
Like to be humble enough to accept you're wrong, be humble enough to know that others can teach you. And then to be humble enough to know that it's out there.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my life being like, oh, no one knows this answer. You know, like, oh, I'll do it. Because that's part of the arrogance of starting something.
Totally.
You have to be like, I'm the only person that could come up with a better pizza.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be a real arrogant jerk to think that.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you need to learn how to be humble after that.
Yeah.
And I say arrogant jerk in a good way.
Yeah.
But then you have to learn to be humble after that to start learning. To say, like, oh, you know, I got it pretty good, but I got more to do.
Yeah. Or on the flip side, you know, maybe not holding that arrogance, you know, which can be a powerful thing to get started. But this idea that other people can do what I'm doing, I just happen to be doing it right now.
Yeah.
And respect that someone else can come in and have that as a motivator to keep innovating, to keep outdoing yourself a little bit, and to keep this thing growing. Cullen, this is perfect. I think the office is getting quiet now, so we're going to end the interview. But Cullen, it was really good to have you on the show. What's a great way for people to follow up? I don't know if you talk about what you're doing online or if it's all Union Kitchen. Where should people check in with what's happening here and what's happening with you?
Yeah, I try to stay off the social medias, but we do it all through our handle. So Union Kitchen DC, you find that everywhere. Check out our website, and just got questions, reach out to us. We love talking about this. We love having people by for tours, and we like inspiring people to start badass food business.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Founder's Mind. Check back next week to hear from Kara Golden, the founder and CEO of Hint. Learn why Kara started her beverage company over 10 years ago, how she's grown it, and what's driving her towards other products like sunscreen. I'll give you a hint, it's personal. To make sure you don't miss any awesome wisdom from guests and stay up to date on the most recent episodes of the show, be sure to visit thefoundersmind.com. You can also follow along on social at thefoundersmind. Last but not least, a thank you to Roy Matz for the music on this show and his dope editing skills that make The Founder's Mind possible. Until next time, take care.
In the world, going through all of this insanity and try to bring new ideas, make them a reality. Illuminate in the thoughts, make it a priority to implement what you learn. What you get is what you be. In a world full of noise, hard to find that clarity to try to lead subtly, never full of vanity, and try to change something small or try to change humanity. Power forward through the dark, founder's mind is what you see. Founder's mind is what you see.